If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, there's one thing in your mind and there's one thing only, and that is fixing this center spot and figuring out just who will be the guy for 2024. Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports for a Saturday edition of the show. Welcome back, everybody, again. Make sure you hit that like button as we move forward. Let's talk about one guy in particular that is flying up the draft boards, a top 50 prospect, a guy that has some serious potential to be a quality Pro Bowl center, at least in my eyes and many others, it seems like. A guy that is definitely really having his value increase day by day. Arthur Smith went and watched the pro day of Graham Barton at the Duke Blue Devils. He went down there, watched the pro day. Graham Barton didn't disappoint. A guy that ran a fantastic 40 time, a guy that can get to the second level, a guy that can do some special things, has some real fire in his belly, a guy that is 6 foot 5 inches tall, 313 pounds. He's almost a 33-inch arm, and his hands are pretty decently sized at 9 3/8, I suppose, but considered still a little bit undersized for that center position. But nonetheless, a guy that fits in my eyes, a guy that can get to the second level, a guy that can do some special things in the interior of the offensive line, having a handful of games there. Also, he has the knowledge of the left tackle position, starting many games there for the Duke Blue Devils. A guy that has been on the All ACC team. He had missed 4 games last year due to injury. Missed the bowl game where the Duke Blue Devils beat the Troy Trojans. So Graham Barton has played a lot of football, missing 4 games or so. But he was thrusted into that center role at one time when there was massive injuries across Duke's offensive line, and he played pretty well. A guy that is projected, though, in the NFL by many to be a center. So this is where we're looking at Graham Barton from Duke, senior, a guy that's from, I believe, Tennessee. He played his final 6 games of the 2020 season, and 5 starts at center on the offensive line for the Duke Blue Devils. So he appeared in the last 6 games of 2020, and he started 5 of them at center. So that's where he gets that center experience in college. Then in 2021, he started all 12 games at left tackle. In 2022, he was first team All ACC, started all 13 games at left tackle. In 2023, first team All ACC again, started 9 games at left tackle, but that is where he missed 4 games, including the team's bowl game, with a lower body injury. So Graham Barton, relatively healthy throughout his career as a Duke Blue Devil. But he has the experience of both the interior and the exterior of the offensive line. Guys that can play at the end, play in the middle. That's good knowledge. And you want your center to be well versed in those things, guys. You want your center to know what everybody's job is. The center is going to be calling out protections. The center is going to be making audibles and doing things like that. And he has to be very well versed in what is going on throughout the whole offensive line. But Graham Barton definitely could really play. He's very quick, very shifty, good fast hands, good fast feet, a guy that can get to that second level. Like, I keep emphasizing that because I feel like that is going to be very, very important in an Arthur Smith offense. And I think Arthur Smith knows that. That's exactly why he went and saw Graham Barton in person. Most people, I'm not much on this, and I'm not big on the comparisons of current NFL players, but some people are comparing him to, like, Cody Whitehair. I don't know. I'm not into that. I don't like to do that to anybody. But when you're reviewing and taking a look at Graham Barton's tape, guys, the experience level really jumps off the table at you. He's experienced across the whole offensive line. And that, I like that. I really, really like that. He has high intensity, high tenacity, high fire, finishes plays, and distributes that and displays that constantly on his game tape. A guy that is really, really, really solid in that area. And that is something you really like if you're looking for a future Pittsburgh Steeler. Yes, he played left tackle. I know that may scare some people off, but he still has those games at center that he performed pretty well. He's an explosive guy, though. That's one thing that we really got to look at. A guy that is an explosive blocker. And also, not to mention explosive, but he is a great drive blocker, guys. He can drive his feet and keep his feet moving until that whistle blows and beyond. He drives his opponents. He tries to anyway. He tries to drive them into the ground. He is able to control pretty well also. He's a good control blocker, and that's something you're going to be looking for in the interior of that offensive line, to open up those interior run lanes, to clear that mess up from the middle of both lines. In the trenches, you're going to have that major collision. You're going to have that mess. You're going to have that chaos. And you're looking for guys that are able to control and turn their defenders away from the play and create open holes. And Graham Barton's that guy. He has good control. Yes, his arms are a little shorter than most would like, but it's not horrible. He's still a big dude, man. They say, yes, he lacks length. Okay, but it's not that crazy. The length isn't that crazy in my eyes, the disadvantage at length. I just don't think that was going to play a big problem. And this is what I want to say really makes me like Graham Barton in a big way. His ability to climb. And when I say climb, it was what I was talking about in the beginning. That is his ability to get to the second level. I really, really like that about a guy like Graham Barton. His ability to pull, his ability to get to the second level quickly really, really entices me. Really, really brings me toward a guy like Graham. I feel like that is really going to play a big, big role in an Arthur Smith offense. Having a guy like a Graham Barton that can get to the second level and get a hat on a guy. Now, there is a little bit of a disadvantage with Graham Barton there. I feel like sometimes he lunges when he gets to the second level, trying to get to a guy maybe instead of waiting on that block to develop and come to him. I feel like he gets a little bit ahead of himself sometimes and lunges a little bit, which could be a problem, could be an issue moving forward for Graham if he doesn't correct that. But I think that will come and fix itself as he becomes more and more comfortable. And, that type of thing isn't going to totally scare me off, because I think that that's something you could coach out of him. Also, sometimes when he gets beat, he kind of looks like, oh, shoot, what do I do? What do I do? And it doesn't happen often. He doesn't get smoked often. But when he does, he doesn't have maybe the ability to just find a guy and get a hat on a guy. I think that he needs to figure that out a little bit also. Find a guy. You miss a block or whatever, you get beat, you still got to find a guy to hit. You still got to put a hat on a hat, man. And that is something that he has to really, really focus on as he approaches the next level, because he doesn't want that to be a problem. Also, another issue with him I see is when he does get beat, he gets real handsy and arms. He likes to wrap his arms. He's a rapper, if you know what I mean, which could draw a lot of flags at the NFL level. Again, it doesn't happen often. And I know he played in the ACC. I get that. It's not the greatest competition in the world all the time, every team. There are some great teams in the ACC. Don't get me wrong. There's some really good ones. But it's not like top to bottom like the SEC, like quality monster teams. But there are still nonetheless some really good teams in the ACC. So we won't discount him in any way. He has played some quality competition. He played at Duke. So he's played some teams that definitely have some big-time guys in the middle of the defense and on the edges of the defense. So he's definitely played against some decent opponents. But if you look at Graham Barton and you look at how he can get to the second level, you look at how ferocious he is, you look at his fire in his want to, I think that really, really does jump off the page for your Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think that should be something really that they're focused on. His mentality, his way and want to get to that second level, how quickly he does it. When he ran that quick 40 time, I know that had to wow a guy like Arthur Smith, man. And Arthur's probably thinking to himself, man, I can get him out on that pull, those kick-out blocks. I can get him out ahead of Najee and Jalen and get that downfield blocking that I'm going to need to spring some big plays, especially for a guy like Jalen Warren that could really help him hit some home runs in 2024. If you have guys that get to the second level and really put a hat on a hat and control some holes and open up some holes for a guy like Jalen Warren, to where if Jalen Warren gets to the second level and he is untouched when he hits that second level, good luck bringing him down, because he is going to be moving. And the same goes for a guy like Najee Harris. You get a guy like Najee that is that big, that strong, to the second level without resistance. He is going to be very hard to bring down as you try to get him down farther down the field. He is not going to just be the easiest tackle in the world, you know. You're going to have to really, if you're a defensive back, you're going to have to really put your body out there and sacrifice your body to tackle one of those guys when they have a full head of steam. And that's all created by guys that get to the second level quickly and are able to get to a block quickly on the second level. That is very, very important. Barton's technique, toughness, athleticism, I think are all there, guys. But I really think that Jackson Powers Johnson's still the best center in this draft, and I know that. I just don't think realistically that he is there when the Steelers pick. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, Graham Barton is, yes, flying up the draft boards. He's a top 50 prospect. But do you wait perhaps and maybe just get a tackle, get a cornerback, somebody else in the first pick, and then wait and get a Graham Barton and hopefully that he's there at pick 51? Graham is a top 51 prospect. Or hope for maybe another center to be there, a Van Pran, a Zach Frazier. But I really think it's going to be tough. I think the two top ones are going to be Jackson Powers Johnson, and I think Graham Barton's in that conversation along with Zach Frazier. Those are probably the three guys that I feel like are really being coveted by a lot of teams. Yes, there's a lot of stuff going around about Jackson Powers Johnson, guys. Maybe his attitude. I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't know a lot about that. I'm not going to claim that the guy's a bad dude or anything, but you heard the rumors. That's probably not true. We just don't know. None of us know. And then you look at he had some injuries. He pulled his hamstring at the Senior Bowl. That heals. That is what it is. The only thing that I really worry about with Jackson Powers Johnson is that concussion stuff. It's concussions are in the limelight of all football, and you see a lot of the rules being tailored to try to prevent and slow down the amount of concussions in the league. So that is an issue. And if you're the Steelers, you have to acknowledge that and you have to look at that. And you have to weigh the options. Is it worth bringing him in? Is he going to eventually have a problem down the road? And I think that's where you have to lean on your team doctors to give you the solid advice on what to do. So maybe that hurts a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson, who is hands down probably the best center in this draft in terms of playing on the field, on the game tape, and has, probably one of the higher amounts of experience, So how do you turn your eyes away from him other than an injury or something like that would make you shy away from him? But then you look at WVU's Zach Frazier. He's a guy that's played center. Yes, he dealt with a mad injury and didn't get to play last year a ton. So you're looking at him and saying, well, he had injuries too. Graham Barton, he had injuries. He missed 4 games in the final part of the season for the Duke Blue Devils and missed the bowl game. And then you look at Van Pran. What do you do with him? Is he good enough to be in the conversation with those guys, with those top guys in the NFL draft in 2024? There's several questions, guys, but I got to say, and the reason I really wanted to do this show is I think it's coming down to 2 players for the Pittsburgh Steelers that are realistic options that they could really get. And I think it's Graham Barton from the Duke Blue Devils, and I think it's WVU Zach Frazier center. I think that those 2 are the guys that are realistic options for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get. And I think that where they get them may be in the second round. We'll see. We'll see how Graham Barton continues to fly up these boards. Maybe he's picked very early. Maybe Jackson Powers Johnson is still there at 20 and you're willing to take that chance on him, considering he is probably the best center. But I really, truly believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers probably don't have a realistic chance in getting Jackson Powers Johnson just because there are center-needy teams ahead of them. So let's just take him out of the equation. If he's there, I say pick him. That's my theory. Pick him if he's there. If Jackson Powers Johnson's there at 20 and you like him and you're good with what the doctors have said and you're good with your interviews that you've had with him, you're good with how you've talked to him at the Senior Bowl, etc., pick him. Take him. But if not, go with somebody else. Get one of them big name tackles and then try to wait in the second round for either a Graham Barton or a Zach Frazier and maybe even a Van Pran. I think that has to be your path. And if by chance maybe some best athlete out there, best athlete available still on the board falls to you at one of those spots and you have no choice but to take them, okay, figure something else out. Because let's face it, guys, there are still options out there that you can bring in. There are still options. The Miami center that was injured with the torn ACL, he is an option that could possibly be in play. Then you have Mason Cole, who's still out there as a free agent, even though he had a horrible year. If you can't find the guy you want, you bring back that guy on a vet minimum or something if he's willing to. Maybe do something like that. I know that that's not the most desirable thing, but don't reach. And that's where we're getting to in this video, guys. Don't reach. And I don't think Omar Khan is going to do that. I don't want to see the Steelers reach for a player just because we know we need a center. Yes, we all know that. We all know we need a center. It's a glaring hole. We get it. But you don't reach in these drafts, regardless of what position you need. The minute you start reaching and taking players out of necessity is the minute that you start picking players that don't fit. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I may be wrong, but reaching for players is not the right philosophy. It is definitely not. In my eyes. You guys may think differently, but that's just my opinion. And I got to give it to you straight. I don't want to bullshit you, but that's exactly what I think. When you take people that are reaches and you're just going, well, I have to have this position, man. I know that this guy isn't the best player available. He may have some issues, but man, I got to take him because I don't have a center. You can't live like that. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, I still feel like you don't have to live like that because I still think you can make something happen later on in the draft. And there are other prospects that we're not even talking about that do have potential also that we'll explore even closer to the draft. We'll dive into them a little bit more also. But this was the big one, the Graham Barton thing. Arthur Smith going to the pro day. This was starting to gain some steam, and I really wanted to talk about it. We talked about it a little bit last night on the show, on the live show, Steel City Live. We talked about that a little bit. We dove into maybe a little bit of issues with Jackson Powers Johnson, but we're all undecided. So we continue to dive into the most important topic right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is the center spot. So we're going to continue to break that down. This was just one of those shows to dive into a guy like a Graham Barton and talk a little bit about him and see exactly what you all think out there in Steelers Nation. Don't forget our live shows Monday through Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the exception of Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, Monday, April 1st, I have Merrill Hodge joining me, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Steel City Live, and it is going to be a phenomenal show. Look for about a 40-minute show. So that'll be it. The live chat will be going. It won't be our normal answer every question like we normally do. We have limited time with Merrill, so we're going to have to, pound out the information and pound out the content with him. And I really want to hear about his draft thoughts, where he thinks the Steelers are going to be headed. I want to hear about where he thinks the Pittsburgh Steelers have made great moves in this offseason thus far and where they need to continue to make some moves. And I still anticipate, guys, also, I want to see what Merrill's thoughts are, but I still anticipate a big move coming from the Steelers ahead of the draft. I really, really do. And also, look for players like a Patrick Peterson, players that are depth pieces like that. Look for them to be signed right after the draft. I really think that that's where you'll see maybe those players signed after the Steelers see exactly what holes they have left after the draft remaining on their roster. I look for that to be where you start to see some of these other players to be signed. So players that were on the edge, players that were released because of money. You may see a return of some of them players as depth piece players, and you'll just have to see how that all plays out. But again, guys, thank you for joining us on a special Saturday edition of Mike Drop Sports, and I appreciate you guys so very much as we continue our march toward 5,000 subscribers. We're getting there, man. We're definitely getting there. So continue to do that for us. Make sure you hit the like button. Until next time, I'm Jason. This is Mike Drop Sports. Peace.